Hi, I'm Britton LaRue, and this is Moon to Moon. Moon to Moon is a space to consider, celebrate, and share the ways we come home to ourselves, anchor through change, and uncover our power. 1 month, one phase, one loving step at a time. Hello, Moon to Moon. It's Britton, and I'm so excited to be giving an entire episode to sharing with you about my Underdog to Diva group mentorship container, which is going to be opening its doors again. We're beginning on Tuesday, November 19th, going to May. And I just am completing this week my first 6-month crew, and I'm calling in the next set of human beings. Whether you think you're going to be joining this container or not, it's really quite unique and magical and radical as a framework and as a meditation to contemplate. Like, this container is the dream of my younger self, who was trying to figure all this out in the dark. And I feel like probably the reason I love doing this so much is, at some level, I'm helping her through timelines. This container has become a true joy for me. Like, it feels really right in my body. It was a little scary to hold at the beginning because I had never done it before. So I was an underdog at Underdog to Diva. But I trusted its goldenness, its divinity, and through the process and the practice of showing up to it with those that it constellated, I began to understand what I was offering, which is nearly always the case with every container that I initiate for the first time. And I also know from doing this before that I will continue to understand what Underdog to Diva means as I show up to it year after year, every 6 months to every 6 months. I want it to run round the year, so doors opening twice a year, because I think it's so important that I want it to never not be running. So my desire in this episode is to do a few different things. One is I'm going to be offering you sneak peeks of what goes on inside the container. One of those things is I'm going to be sharing the Scorpio invitation for Underdog to Diva. For each of the signs, I offer a teaching, a transmission, where I invite the sign to support you in the Underdog to Diva framework, which I'll define in a minute. So there's a Scorpio transmission that I'm going to be sharing here that's going to be really supportive to all y'all connecting to Scorpio at this time. And then I'm going to be sharing 2 different examples of me responding to something that's coming up in someone else in the group. Because so much of the format of Underdog to Diva is based on me receiving you, witnessing you, hearing you, feeling into what's coming up in you that you want to share and bring to the group. And then I roll through out my mouth what comes through for me when I receive your question, your share about what's coming up in you right now in your business. And some of that happens in the live space that we do. I'll talk about the structure of the container in a second. And some of that comes through asynchronous Q&As that happen on our off weeks. And so I'm going to be sharing 2 different types of questions that I've received, and I'll be sharing with you how I responded. We do it all anonymously in the group. And so I'll just be sharing how I responded to what came up for the asynchronous Q&A to give you a sense of well, first of all, you can just enjoy being transformed by what I say if it's catalyzing for you and shifting and helpful for you, whether you join the container or not. But also, if you're feeling into joining, listen and feel into, is this the kind of thing that would be really supportive to me? Do I want to have Britton respond to what's coming up for me in my life, in my work, in my practice, in a regular way? And do I want to give this to myself? Do I want to give myself 6 months of having this on the regular? Being in a community of other magical practitioners out there working in the marketplace, what would that be like for me? Would that be supportive for me? Would that be expansive for me? Would this be transformational for me? That's what I'm inviting you to listen to. Yeah. The basic premise of Underdog to Diva is that we are full human beings. At any given moment, we're multidimensional beings. And at any moment, there is a part of us that is always connected to the truth of our divinity, of the fact that we're divine beings walking amongst divine beings. And that these gifts that we want to share with others, that we are putting out into the world for other people to say yes to or not, to pay us for, should they choose to say yes, or to be at least in some kind of reciprocity with us, that these gifts are coming from this truly divine part of us that's wanting to be shared. This kind of golden abundance that we have a lot of, and we want to put it out in the world, and we want to experience ourselves as someone putting our golden light out in the world. And experience what flows back to us when we do that, through money, through relationship, through witnessing somebody else blossoming from experiencing our own gifts. This powerful thing of giving this solar light, this goldenness out, and then finding out how that reverberates back our way, and just that infinity loop back and forth between giving and receiving, which is what it's like to be in your goldenness, in your solar self, in your sun self, sharing it. It's very leonine, just letting the mane out. And we also have these human selves that have known pain and wounds. They've known failures. They've known disappointments. They're not super trusting. They've known ups and downs. They remember that last time when it didn't work. And these parts of us are also real. They're part of who we are. And to me, this is what I've been framing as the underdog self. And the idea with the underdog is that anytime you're new in some way to something in the game of what I call the marketplace reality, like that market over there, oh yeah, that place where we go and we have things like money and PayPal and Venmo and bank accounts and like that very real place that's over there in this human zone of life. It's not the whole of us. It's not the only reality. It's not the truth of our worth. It's not the truth of our goldenness. It doesn't actually mean anything about our divinity. And it is a real place where we do exchange things. It's like a hot zone of spikiness. For many of us, everyone has money pain, money wounds. Everyone does. And so we have all of these younger selves who we're engaging with as we're in the process of sharing our gifts. And they're like concerned for us, like these are the parts of us that want to manage the process or they want to protect us. And sometimes these parts of us want to collapse or they want to mute ourselves. We want to get smaller. Or we want to not do the thing because the doing of the thing could bring evidence that we don't want to see. And then we get in this loop with these parts of us where we feel like showing up is just so terrifying. And you know what? It just always is, actually, at some level. This courage that we call in an underdog to diva, this big-hearted courage, which would be another Leo thing. The fixed signs are really central to the underdog to diva experience because I'm using them in connection with the fortune card and the world card from the tarot, which have the fixed signs in the corners. This is like part of a much larger teaching that I did a whole workshop with. But the idea is that the fixed signs are like our pillars for self-worth, Taurus, self-love, Leo, self-trust, Scorpio, and self-esteem, Aquarius. We look at all the signs in Underdog to Diva, but these fixed signs help us really root in and protect the circle of our divinity. Like in the glyph for the sun in the chart is a circle of spirit. And so in Underdog to Diva, it's not about going from Underdog to Diva, although that happens too. But it's more about holding the infinity loop, this mystery of being both at the same time. And really remembering that one of the fun things about being a beginner at something is we get to have this puppy energy about being new at it. And this is always happening. I'm always an underdog at something that I'm doing because I'm always at my edges. Me, Britton LaRue. Walking the mystery path of the unknown and uncertainty and not knowing all the answers, living very emergently with my gifts and what comes through me, I am on the regular bringing out new things or taking old things to new places. So every time I'm walking edges, there's an underdog part of me that is really nervous about this. And channeling my puppy energy around staying curious and staying playful is super helpful so that I feel more able to expand the golden light and expand my aura and expand my magnetism so that I can trust that what I'm bringing in is going to be really beautiful to the people that it magnetizes, and we're all going to have a great time. So Underdog to Diva is a group space. It's a limited number space for intimacy because you'll be expected to contribute and to show up. That's part of practicing your goldenness, practicing your voice. It's really for those of you that you really know that you're golden. Like you are tapped into your divinity self. You sense your goldenness. However, also, you also sense the parts of you that are afraid of that goldenness, probably because you were conditioned to believe that you would be annihilated if you really let that out. I'm really not over speaking there. Like, some part of you is afraid of annihilation. You may have experienced some real threat when you let your golden out when you were young. And so you're tapped into it, but it's scary to be very locked into pumping it out. And pumping it out week after week, no matter the roller coaster of fortune, the roller coaster of life. We're always going to be experiencing retrogrades and eclipses and like stuff collectively. And like still showing up, still showing up, still showing up, still showing up, still showing up. Because some part of you loves those gifts so much. Like you love experiencing what it's like to be in your gifts and sharing them. You know they're from a love place. It feels so good to be tapped in. It just feels so delicious. And you know that reciprocity around that is actually really beautiful in Venusian. Diva is goddess. Diva is Venus. The Venusian is based in reciprocity and relationship. I give to you, you give to me, we're receiving, it's wonderful. Isn't this beautiful? So it's a really unique container because it's basically inviting you to really illuminate where you have manager and protector parts of you that are very hyper vigilant, trying to keep you safe from your golden frequency in the world. And those are the things that what I count on from you is that you're going to come and illuminate those. Like you're going to allow those to be seen by the group and by me. Like this is what's showing up. And then what you share with me, like lights something up in me. And then I roll through what comes up for me when I witness you. So you get personal attention from me, where I share both from my personal experience, but I also just share like at a psychic level what comes up for me when I witness you, from your own, like it's a psychic reading, you know? And I share the pictures that I'm seeing and allowing what comes through me to support you and nourish you. Of course, take what you like and leave the rest. So you receive every other week live time with me. And then the off weeks, you have the opportunity to submit something in writing. And then I make a recording based on everything that came through from the group. And I just love this. I mean, I love doing this. It feels so nourishing for me. It's like, it's almost hard for me I don't even understand why it feels so good. I don't know why it feels so good to me. It just does. Like it means so much to me too, to just feel into supporting you, supporting myself, supporting magical, mystical human beings who want to have businesses, supporting you and trusting in your expansiveness, and trusting in your expansive fields of love and beauty, and just like helping you trust in holding to it, even through the weeks where you don't feel like you're not totally sure you can believe it. We have those containers that don't acknowledge this. Like, how can we trust them? Like, we as human beings have parts of us that are always afraid. We're afraid. We don't get over it. We get more skilled at showing up anyway and giving compassion to those parts of ourselves that are not so sure it's going to be safe, The showing up is what actually provides the internal safety that we're looking for, because the world outside isn't a place where we can be guaranteed safety. It's not. The safety has to come from within, from us showing to ourselves that we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to do it perfectly. We don't have to know everything. We don't have to be experts at things we've never done before. Like, we are disrupting these things by showing up as we are, from the love that we have, feeling our gifts moving through us and sharing them with other human beings and participating in the world that way. So it's just so fucking beautiful. And an honor, When you come to Underdog to Diva, there's a lot of humility that comes with it. Because it may be that in the spaces you hold, you are the leader. You are the one who answers the questions. You are the one that people are looking to. So when you come to Underdog to Diva, you're inviting yourself to be more humble, because this is a place where you can admit that you don't know everything. Like, this is a place to practice, like, not being the leader in the room. This is a place where it's like, you don't have to hold it all together. It's okay to say that you're struggling with something. This is a place to be vulnerable so that you can transmute whatever that energy is under the surface, because your teachings, your speech, your frequency out in the world will come through so much more clear and so much more powerfully and magnetically and expansively if you give yourself the opportunity to transmute the vulnerability under the surface into something like love and compassion. And so this is a space where you can do that and then go back out into the world and be speaking from a more clear place, because you've given yourself a chance to be fully with all parts of you, including the parts of you that are confused or unsure or wobbly. Underdog to Diva is not going to work well for you if you're someone who can't let yourself be seen that way in front of others, It will feel extremely contracting and confronting if that like level of humility just feels too frightening. You don't have to be not frightened to come. You can bring the fear of being seen with you in the door and just trust that the medicine will take hold while you're there. But you kind of have to know at the front about your capacity to be seen vulnerably by the group, or else you won't be able to allow yourself to be supported by it. You know what I mean? And I would want you to come. I don't want you to sign up and then feel like you failed. Because it is very confronting to come week after week after week. Well, technically it's every other week, but there's also the Q&A off weeks. So this space is really ideal for those of you who already have a lot of momentum. Like you're already creating momentum with your business. your creative, visionary business, whatever that is. I've always liked like Montessori style classrooms where everybody's at a different place. I find those to be the most rewarding and most powerful and most magical. So everyone will be coming at a different place, but the idea is that you already know what it's like to be in momentum and you already are in momentum. So when you come to share, you're sharing from the field of your momentum. Like you're sharing from, I'm out there, I'm doing things, I'm participating, this is happening, this is what's coming up, this is what's coming up. It's not a great space for you if you're like climbing the diving board, but you're not jumping in yet. You know what I mean? Like if you aren't currently jumping off the diving board, you're probably going to find Underdog to Diva, again, very confronting and contracting, because it is from jumping in that you find out what you want to bring to the group. You know what I mean? It's the actual scrappy hustling of like just jumping in anyway, just jumping in it, climbing back up, jumping back in. That is going to bring you the material to then bring to the group. But it's not a great choice to sign up if you're like, this is going to be the thing that helps me jump off the diving board. Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Maybe it will. I mean, you're welcome to give that a shot. If you feel really certain that you are so close to jumping and you're going to commit to jumping as soon as we get started, then maybe it would be amazing. However, it really is for those of you who are already in the scrappy momentum. And that momentum can be because you just started your side gig, in the last year or two, and like you're consistently showing up to it and you're trying to grow it. Like you're trying to make this side gig more of a full-time hustle. That would be amazing for Underdog to Diva. Or it is your full-time business already, but you're going to take it in a new direction and you're going to allow everybody to see you in a more taboo way because you're going to you really are craving being more openly mystical or magical in how people see you and how you teach and the words that you use. And so it feels super scary because you may have had success, quote unquote, already, but now you're really going to let people see you. And that is like, whoa, it's scary because you already have built up a reputation, and there's this fear that people aren't going to go with you in the new direction. Honestly, one of the most amazing kinds of people who Underdog to Diva is for those of you who are really just fucking done with perfectionism. And it's super scary. You may not feel like if you release shame and discipline from your business as usual, you may be worried like, how will I even show up? How can I even run this if I'm not doing it based on the grind of trying to win everybody over with my goodness or my how perfect I am or how hard I work? And you're really wanting to hand this over to way bigger, more expansive levels of trust and get way more erotic with desire here rather than running it from shame and discipline. It may feel really scary, like, how will I be motivated if I'm not trying to win everybody over with how great I am? How will I do anything if I'm not trying to meet this worthiness thing? That can be really frightening because trying to be worthy can be a great motor, like in terms of it's a motor that turns on. So it must be good. No, you now know that it's not, this is depleting you. It's exhausting you. It's not sustainable. And so it's like, now what? What am I going to do now? Well, this is a place where we're just like unapologetically talking about our divinity, to speaking to love and abundance I have a framework in the class called the temenos, which is like your temple space, your sacred grove, where you can return to refuel yourself with your own divinity. So we have these frameworks that we like allow you to unshame that you want to work from that place. You want to participate from that place. You're wanting to exchange from that place. We also have another keyword, delusional dream. This is a very Piscean space. You begin by being connected to your delusional dream. Pisces is the dreamers. Why is it delusional? Because nobody's seen it before. So it must not be real, right? From a Pisces position, like exactly, that's what the imagination's for. So what we're doing in Underdog to Diva is really tapping, brightening, expanding your connection to the delusional dream that you're sharing, that you want to share, that you want to be in the momentum of sharing. And because we can talk about that so honestly and so openly, it becomes much more real than when you're having to feel like you have to resource it all from your own self. And there's not a lot of people out there to support you in validating it. Yeah, so let me think if there's anything I would want to share with you before the first thing that's going to come through. I don't think so. What you're about to hear is the Scorpio transmission. So each week I unveil a new sign invitation. And the idea with each of these invitations is they really land in Piscean ways. You know how these aren't teachings where I'm like, here are the steps, 1, 2, 3. Okay, go do these steps. That's not the kind of transmissions these are. These are transmissions that really come in, they roll through you, they affect you, and in a languageless way, they change you, but it's hard to potentially put your finger on what it was. They're meant to shift you, catalyze you, ignite things in you. That may be both. Some aspects of these transmissions are consciously affecting you, and in other ways, the transmissions are unconsciously affecting you. So for Scorpio season, when this is coming out, perhaps if you are a business owner, you have a practice that you exchange your gifts with money. Something I repeat a lot is the phrasing in Underdog to Diva. I say, as you're navigating the marketplace reality as a divine being among divine beings, where you share your gifts in exchange for money. That whole phrasing, I repeat it constantly because that's what we're doing. Navigating the marketplace reality as a divine being among divine beings, where we're sharing our gifts with other human beings for money. So good. I get excited every time I say it. So I'm going to be speaking about Scorpio from that place. That's the lens. And so what I'm doing in Underdog to Diva is unshaming the signs applied. Unshaming the signs applied to being a magical business owner, to being a creative visionary out there in the marketplace. And so whatever that profession is, doesn't actually matter to this group. What matters is that you're out there in the momentum of being in the marketplace. Like, I got a thing. Anybody want to exchange money for my thing? And like acknowledging on the one hand, like the marketplace reality is super weird. And yeah, it's like forged from a lot of energetics that are grotesque and super, super, super harmful and oppressive. And we've got these gifts to share. Anybody want to share? This is what it costs. Come, let me share my gifts with you. Both and. So if you're someone who is doing that, I invite you to just receive the Scorpio transmission and see what comes up for you. And then on the other side, I'll give an introduction to some of my the cues that I share my A's to. They're not really answers, like here's my answer. What I'm really sharing is what comes up for me. So I'll see you on the other side of the Scorpio transmission, where you can get some samples of how I respond to one of the questions is about fear of rejection in front of like your social networks when you're out there being openly mystical and magical. And then the next question that I'm going to share what came up for me had to do with once you've launched a thing and you've like started the promo and you've shared that it's happening, working with all the wobbles that come up when you've said like, okay, this new thing's coming out, and now you're in the midst of that energy and how scary it is and the voices that come up. So if you would like to hear what I say to these questions, continue to listen. And then at the very end, I will have like a closing note for you. All right. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in Underdog to Diva, early bird pricing ends Friday night, the 8th, November 8th. If you are interested in Underdog to Diva, you can have 20% off the tuition if you apply before you go to bed on Friday, November 8th. After that, it goes to full price. And then we begin on Tuesday, November 19th. And it will fill when the doors are either going to close when seats are full or the day before we begin, or even the morning of us beginning. It just depends on what happens with the promo and the number of people that come in. I filled it last time, so I anticipate filling it again. Thank you so much and enjoy. Hello, Underdog to Diva. This is Britton LaRue, and I've got for you a transmission on Scorpio. I always get really excited, turned on, shall we say, to talk about Scorpio. Scorpio is a sign that is really important to Underdog to Diva as a framework because it is one of the fixed signs that comes from, that we see in the two cards that are really inspirational to this framework, which are the Wheel of Fortune card and the World card or the Universe card, where we see the symbols of the fixed signs around the central image. And so just to review, for me, learning how to bring my underdog selves into ways of being that feel more like my diva selves, remembering my divinity. These are supported in like the four corners, like foundational pillars, temenos pillars through the fixed sign energies. as you know, if you study with me, I'm not talking about Scorpio sun people, Leo people. I'm talking about all of us. That it is through the fixed signs that we can create like the corners of the temple to really like root into, this is me, this is where I am, this is what I know, this is what I value, this is what I love, this is what I respect. And these are the places where I'm unshakable. And that the boundaries that these parts of us can set with life and with our own selves and with our own behaviors, these boundaries support us in fortifying the sense of the temple. And the other signs are all doing all their other beautiful things around these 4 pillars. So each of those 4 pillars of the fixed signs represents a different element. And so Scorpio is, of course, water. It's our second and middle water sign. So when we're speaking to the realm of water, we're really inviting in the body that feels, the you that is a feeling body, the you that perceives through water, is a you that's connected to more of what is mysterious and unseen in the primordial ways that water is. So, with Scorpio being fixed water, it really is this part of us that goes to these very deep feeling places and has a very deep connection to the realm of feeling. And I associate Scorpio in terms of Underdog to Diva and the framing of those 4 pillars with unshakable self-trust. Self-trust. I talked about Taurus as self-worth and Leo as self-love. So here I'm talking about self-trust. And this is, of course, such a central pillar here because we're really powerful when we trust ourselves. You know, we really become unshakable. Being a person who trusts themselves is a person who is able to just know and make decisions from that place. So it's worth mentioning then that the number one consequence of shame is lack of self-trust. So this is going to bring in the unshaming curriculum that we're in here, because Scorpio is really supportive, being that it's so much about the capacity to trust oneself. Through unshaming, we can get closer to that part of us, that just knows. Because this like knowing that Scorpio has is very, it's a mysterious knowing. Like, we think of Scorpios, we tend to think of them as very intelligent. The Scorpio way of being is sort of like shrewdest one in the room energy. Feel into the vibration of shrewd. You know, it's like, from an unshaming perspective, it's like who's going to give me permission to be shrewd? Am I really just allowed to be shrewd? For the parts of me that are really tied to like my sense of innocence and naivete, and like my childlike self, which for me is a real strong frequency. Giving myself the permission to be shrewd is like some hot audacity, because it's very much not connected to like what I can call like my quote unquote identity, right? Like what happens with archetypes is we identify with some and then we don't identify with others, you know? And so if you don't identify with Scorpio and you're like, I'm not that, that's somebody else, right? Well, then we are seeding, CEDEING, I think remove the middle E. We are seeding permission to be like shrewd about strategy and to be like more unfuckwithable energetically, because like we know. So don't fuck with me. I know. Okay? This is an energy that's like uncompromising in terms of like, it's trust that I know. That's a mysterious thing, because this knowing is coming from water. You know, the knowing here is coming from, I just have a feeling. I just know. It's a felt sense that I know that I'm turning right and not left here. I have a felt sense that this is going to be what works in this plan. I have a felt sense that the strategy here is to wait until this timing. And that timing is going to be the one that is going to work in a way that pleases me. And I just know. And so it's not like, it's very unfuckwithable energy, because it's not like I ran the data and based on all the data, although it can work with that, like Virgo and Scorpio working together, it's like, look out, look out, because this is a combo of like, I've checked the data and I just know intuitively. This is the strategy, right? This is the strategy. And this is how the Scorpio is the eagle. You know, it's like the general, this like eagle eye view of like, this is how we're going to move things. And I am not going to be in a rush. And I am not going to fuck this up. I know exactly the pace and the direction from which I'm going to come in, and I'm going to get what I want. I know it. I know it. So that's some hot energy, even though this is water. And of course, this is from the ruler, Mars. Now, modern astrology would also say Pluto, and totally like, I love to speak about Pluto when I'm also speaking about Scorpio, but I personally honor Hellenistic rulership when I talk about the signs. So for me, it's primarily Mars. So Mars leading with its pointer and probing, plunging, researching, moving towards exactly what it wants at the pace that will ensure success. So how do you know how to do that? You trust yourself. You trust yourself that you're not going to make moves that pull you away from the strategy that matters to you. The strategy that matters is something you're going to hold fast to, and you are the surgeon with the scalpel, and you're going to identify and extract exactly what you need, and you're going to go get it. So with that kind of fastness, this focus of this probing scorpionic energy, there's this, the boundaries like come into place, because if something is going to pull you out of your strategy, it's a no, I'm not getting involved in that. That is a distraction from the strategy. And I get what I want. So it's a no, like the ability to just know, that's not for me. I know what I want. I'm going towards what's for me, and everything else is a distraction. This is some real diva to me, because it means that we have permission to name the boundaries that are distractions from the strategy that we care about. And I find that very inspirational. Because included in that would be letting things die, words, egoic attachments, behaviors, relationships that are clearly not helpful to what matters to us, right? So the question is can we trust ourselves that we know what's good for us? Can we trust ourselves that what we want is made of beauty and goodness? And I think that this is where we can get into some difficulty with the Scorpio parts of us. If we're not totally self-trusting, if we're not trusting that this thing that we want is made of love, ultimately, then we might be confused about how to set the boundaries, or wobble, or not fully look at ourselves. And so I feel like this X-ray vision of the Scorpio energy that's very interested in speaking truth, very interested in pulling things up from under the surface so we can look at them, even if they're gory, even if they're creepy, even if they're rotting. I'm just going to look at this, because if I don't, there might be something toxic here that is going to be something that later on I'm going to have to get busy extracting and getting rid of. So the truth speech of the Scorpio parts of ourselves can feel very blunt and direct to those who would be more comfortable if we would not name these things. The truth speech of the Scorpio parts of us, for many, there's not a capacity to take the high sensation of that speech, And part of, to me, unshaming Scorpio is just unshaming that truth speech can't be bad. It can't be bad. It can be not on your timing to receive it, but me speaking it is not bad. And so on my side, because I do a lot of truth speaking, I consider my form of hot takes to be just truth speech. It's not aimed to hurt anybody. But it is high sensation. That there may be people who need to remove themselves from the path of my truth speech. And this is not a signal that I've done something wrong or that I'm a bad person. That's my path. My path with my work is to grow strength in self-trust, that if it's coming forward, it's made of goodness. It's beautiful, but also understanding that there's kind of a proper timing to the Plutonic, to the Scorpionic. And there may be someone who like just really doesn't have the capacity to look at that truth right now and needs to move away from it. So, but I teach myself that I trust myself when I don't hold back, you know? When I don't hold back because I'm afraid that someone won't like it. If I hold back, I start to send messages to my psychic world that I don't trust myself. And if I'm not trusting myself, I'm more likely to be wobbly. And then if I'm wobbly, I might go into what I could call like underdog dynamics in my contracts with folks and end up really regretting that. So it kind of it has to, for me, come back to, if you think about Scorpios being very underworld and like what's the underworld stuff is very powerful and high value, like diamonds. I think about like volcanoes who have, very hot liquid. A Scorpio tends to feel like hot water, even though it's also very cold. I've been told that my speech is kind of like volcanic in the sense that like the volcano isn't trying to hurt anybody when it's the stuff from down below needs to come out. It's actually creating new land ultimately. And it's not evil for being a volcano. So if I'm the volcano in this analogy, how can I trust that my job is to just be my volcano self, tuning in and then sharing what wants to erupt, trusting it's creating new land, and that everyone will move to like the proper distance from this volcano that's right for them. Some people might want to get close to it. Some people might want to run away. All of that is none of my business. My business is staying with the volcano speech. And so because it's like underworld, there's something very vulnerable and exposing it. And this work can bring us to Scorpio's connection to the genitals in the human body. And really, it is vulnerable to desire. It is vulnerable to want something. Scorpio is very erotic because it relates to the aliveness of desire and like what you want to fuck, like what you want to experience having. And the feelings that are associated with that are feelings of desire and hunger. And so for me, it's like from an underdog to diva perspective, where we are divine beings among divine beings, navigating the marketplace reality in contract with other human beings where money is involved. The flow of money, the flow of investments, these are very Scorpionic because they relate to the aliveness of desire and exchange of aliveness between beings and the trust in the transformational qualities of investments. That someone investing in services with you is going to flow back to them. They're not just like giving you money and now they've lost it. They're getting something back. They're going to be given the transformational properties of your gifts, which you can't really quantify. And you can never really know the extent of the way they keep rippling out into the world. And thinking about it in terms of like consensual fucking is something where, both people are getting things. And I'm getting something and you're getting something. We're both getting off from this. Like, we're both experiencing aliveness. We're both getting what we desire. This throbbing experience is life affirming, and it's erotic. And so I think for me, like, it's just been a very essential part of my growth to see promoting my offerings as erotic experiences, to see promo as like foreplay, as like turning myself and other people on, because I'm interested in tapping at desire and tapping at like a strategy that makes desire very palpable and open, which is, of course, vulnerable. It's vulnerable for me to so openly tap at desire publicly. And it's probably, there's some measure of vulnerability in saying yes, because there's like an erotic aspect to like, I want this. I want this. Especially when you're not selling things that you're like, you should do this because you should work on yourself. Or you should do this because if you don't do this, you won't have anything. You know, like, I don't want my promo to feel like that. I want it to feel vulnerable because it's so erotic. Because it's erotic, it's about aliveness. And like, that's high sensation. And Scorpio is high sensation. Yeah, so from that perspective then, strategy, you know, Scorpio is the strategy sign. It's the sign for strategy. To be strategic with my offerings needs to be connected to desire. And it needs to involve so much self-trust, because it has to be tied to just like, I know that that's the rhythm I want this to run like. I know that this is when I'm going to announce it. This is when the doors open. This is what, like, I know how this should go. I'm being led by eros, like by the erotic knowing of following. This is a strategy that is erotically designed so that we all get what we want. And if the strategy, it doesn't have a pulse like that, then it's probably going to feel boring to everyone. And like, that's a waste of my energy, you know? But it's vulnerable to be so obviously erotic, like erotic in your energy, especially as someone who like didn't have an erotic life till I was in my middle age. But maybe that's why it feels actually so vital now, is I spent so long pretending this part of me didn't exist and numbing myself to this information and numbing myself to desire, that once I hit like these midlife changes with going through divorce and things and reinventing myself, I just like don't have time for those old plays anymore, you know? Like, this is who I am now. So, yeah, the erotic makes great strategy. Like, that's like the lesson of Scorpio. What do you want? What do you want? What sounds hot? And then it really is a kind of dance of the seven veils. Like it is a dance then. That is very vulnerable. Am I turning you on? Are you really excited by this? Not everyone wants to do promo this way, right? That's okay, of course. For me, as an Aries rising, unshaming the ways of my Mars is like, this is what the pathway is. This is the pathway. For me, it's also very clearing and clarifying because Scorpio just knows. And if I get all up in my brow trying to like figure it out from a analytical perspective, I usually just end up feeling confused. And then I'm like, I don't know. What do you think I should do? I don't know. What do you think I should do? Which isn't to say that I don't do that. Like, I think part of trusting myself is finding people I trust to counsel me. I would say that's very Scorpio too. Not a lot of people. No. Right? Like Scorpio's private. It's like, I'm not like putting up a question in my stories. Like, what do you think I should do? You know, I don't want the advice and the counsel and suggestions of anybody. I have to be shrewd, right? There's that word again. I need to be shrewd about who I trust. And if somebody starts to show that I can't trust them, do I trust myself on that? Yeah, I don't trust them anymore. Like, doesn't mean I don't want to be friends with the person. It doesn't mean I don't value them as human beings. But am I going to bring them into my counsel now? Not anymore. You know, so that inner counsel is sacred trust. And if somebody's like, you're not so sure they've really got your back, they're out of the counsel space. That doesn't mean they're out as in all like ways of relating. But to me, part of trusting myself is showing myself that I value my counsel and I'm not just letting anybody in. It's picky as fuck on who gets to be in the inner council, who gets to like get in my head and affect how I think. If this person starts to do things that give them a question mark, not in the council anymore. Because it's like, who's got time for that, you know? According to Scorpio. That the Scorpio part of you, like that's where the boundaries, the fixed signs give us our boundaries. It's just going to have to be a no, you know? It's going to be a no. And it's the same in everything, right? This is all connected. Same with just who are we letting in? Oh, it's everybody now? No. Like Scorpio is not letting everybody in because it's this high self-preservation. I trust myself because I preserve myself. Nobody's taking me down. And so who are like eagle eyes, like who are the people that I can trust? All you really need is one, right? If you have two, that's like really amazing. Nobody else needs to be in on the, what do you think I should do? Because it's like a high prestige job to be led in your counsel. And a lot of people don't know how to recognize their own biases, and a lot of people don't recognize when their own motivations are influencing their counsel to you. So it's going to be really exhausting if you have to try to do all that filtering for them. So it really just comes down to like those one or two people who you trust that they are like deeply connected to themselves in a way that they will notice when their counsel is biased, and that they love you so much that they are like running their own filters with you. And at the end of the day, it still goes back to you. And that's the ultimate self-trust piece. Is that even the most wise counsel, you can be like, really, really, really appreciate that. But I just have a feeling I'm going to go this other way. And like talk about audacity. The audacity to give yourself permission to be the final word. Thank you. I hope this was supportive. And I look forward to hearing how it moves through you. The audacity to be the final word. Oh. That's just like some impossibility medicine for my younger self. And by that, I just mean that I really believed that sharing my information was what was required of me. Like I needed to tell people what was going on inside me and run it through their opinions and run it through their traps, and that it was, it would have been like kind of a whole drama if I withheld I was chewing on, what I was feeling into, and then just like deciding without talking it through with certain people. I did not feel that was an option. And in my process of growing as a teacher, speaker, author, visibility person in the world, this has been a really big thing, a really big learning for me, is to come to just really trust that I can have incredible guidance, but ultimately it's me that needs to feel good about the decision. It needs to be me that feels trusting that this is what I want to do and this is the direction I'm going to go. I'm the one that decides. I'm the one that I need to trust in ultimately. And this can come up as difficult and painful for us if you've known a kind of plutonic energy, especially like Moon Pluto folks. Like you may feel like your inner world is not fully yours. And so thus your final answer, your final knowing is not fully yours then to your younger self, like to some part of you. You may not believe it. And so this liberation is just enormous. This is enormous liberation for bringing your voice out in the world when you learn to trust that it was a distortion, that you owed certain people their opinion about what you're up to. Huge. I hope that was supportive to y'all. Just a reminder for y'all listening that the early bird for Underdog to Diva is through Friday, November 8th. That's 20% off. We start November 19th. We just do this week after week after week after week. Is like these deep talks, these deep catalyzing medicinal spells for liberation. All right. So what I'm going to get into next here are two different examples of ways that I have responded to what someone in the group had submitted as what was coming up for them at that particular moment. And so I called these Q&As, but they're not really Q&As in the sense that like you have a question and I have an answer. Although they kind of are, I don't really feel myself as like giving an answer as much as like, this is what comes up for me when I feel into your question or what I feel up to what you've shared here. In Underdog to Diva, we do this in the lives, like face-to-face in a group. And what I'm sharing with you is what happens in the off weeks if you want support in the off weeks, because as business owners, shit is coming up weekly, So the off weeks, you can still have like some exchange with me if you need it, like maybe you're in promo and you really are week to week. So this first question that you're going to be hearing here, I'm going to start right in the recording where I began answering so that I can summarize the question in my own words. The question had to do with how do I, Britton LaRue, manage fears of rejection, especially when it comes to thinking about like people watching you from your pre-magical life or your people watching you who knew you before you were really letting this voice out that you're letting out now, right? Like, how do you work with the feeling of like, they aren't going to like it. They're going to reject me. They're going to judge me. They're talking about me. That is a very real thing when you start allowing parts of you to come forward that previously were too taboo or previously had to stay hidden and concealed for whatever reason. But emergently, here they are. And you're sharing them with the world, navigating the marketplace as a divine being among divine being, exchanging your gifts with others, humans, for money. And people are watching, right, who've known you potentially for decades. So this is how I responded. Yes. What I'm noticing is, this is a big one. It's interesting, this word manage, right? Like manage fear of rejection. When it's management, that is what is going into, for all of us, like I'm speaking about myself here, it is management which contorts us. It's our managing part that would have us not do something, not speak, censor, not show up to something that we want to do. to keep ourselves protected from the possibility of people thinking things about us, you know? Like that's a manager part of us that came online when we were younger that thinks that if we can just keep control of people's opinions about us, then we will be okay, like we will be safe. So I want to name that this is about safety. That's what I'm hearing. This is a manager part that has stories about safety, and safety means that we don't get criticized by people that we care about, and which is also to say that they don't have opinions about us. And so on one thing there that I'm getting at is like, it's the manager part that's doing the self-protection to not show up. And so if what you desire is to show up, it's not going to be a manager part that does that. So we can't, quote unquote, manage the fear, you know? And because that the whole parts, all the parts of us that think in terms of management, these are like parts of us that are very logical. It's in the analytical brain, it's in the mind, and it's based on the mind's constructions about reality, based on the past and the younger self's perception of the world, based on lineage, based on trauma, that even thinks that we can manage things. So we cute humans. So on the one hand, I know what you mean with managing fear. And I have like deep compassion for that. And what would it be like to feel into that we don't manage fear, you know? What we do is we relate to the manager parts of us that think that we can somehow control our ecosystems to avoid the opinions of others, you know? Yeah. So, per usual, inner child healing is here. And this can be so intense in the beginning. I may have shared with y'all that, or maybe you've heard me say somewhere else, that when I started an Instagram account, I really didn't think about how it was attached to my email that is attached to my personal account with all my old contacts. I thought I was going to be able to like have some privacy for a while I was in my imposter phase, you know, where I was like tinkering with a new voice that was trying to come forward and a new way of being that was trying to be expressed. But that didn't happen because like what happened is everybody got notified that I'd started this account, and it was like, oh dear. I either quit or I keep going, you know? And one of the consequences of sensing this environment of hostility, which is a projection, you know, of my inner children, to presume the environment as hostile to you, to presume that you will be criticized, to presume that people will have judgmental opinions of you, is our own projection. That doesn't mean that it possibly isn't happening. That doesn't mean there isn't like a real, there may not be real evidence that presents itself that is indeed happening. But the sense that it's there is a projection that we own. You know what I mean? Like, we're the ones projecting onto to the ecosystem not being supported. The what I call the anticipation of non-support, which is Saturnian. You know, it feels to me like Saturn-Venus relationship. And super real, super real. So one of the things that I like to constantly come back to as someone who is a divine being among divine beings, navigating the marketplace, exchanging my gifts for money, who's also like a mom, you know, who goes to carpool and lives in the same city that she grew up in. You know, and I still have contact with family members. It's not like I've separated from them, even though the dynamics of these relationships have deeply shifted these last 7 years. And that has been very painful in many ways. It does help me to think about what I can do, you know? And what I can do is one of the things that I can do is I can take responsibility for my own projections. Like, what would it be like to trust that actually I am supported? What would it be like to trust that nobody's judging me, that people may actually really want to hear what I have to say? What would it be like to just go ahead and presume that people are not criticizing me, that they will turn away if it's not for them? But that doesn't mean they're invalidating me. Just because it's not for them doesn't mean they're shaming me. It just means it's not for them. And that really helped me, because for most of the people from my pre-astrology, pre-mystic life, astrology is not for them. And they do love me, you know? So they may have opinions about my changes. They may have opinions about my divorce. They may have opinions about, you know, showing pictures of myself, professional photos of myself on Instagram. They may have opinions about, like, the degree to which that's a dignified thing to do in your mid-40s when you've got teenage daughters. Like, who even knows? What I do know is that none of that's actually about me, because that's them wrestling with their own humanity, actually, in their own sexuality, in their own feeling about the way they're living their lives, and the way they feel about their own parenting, and the way they feel about their own success or belief systems. Like, shit, it's actually not about me. It's just I'm bringing up for them. If I bring something up for them that's triggering, I'm willing to accept the fact that it's actually not me, even though it's really painful, because I want to be seen, and I would love for people to want to understand where I'm coming from. I would love for people to want to learn about how amazing these wisdom traditions are and how, like, empowering they could be for their lives. But I actually can't make anybody do that, you know? And it's really not personal. I've come to understand this. It's not a criticism of really even of me at all. If someone steps away from my space, it's about what they need to give themselves. And I mean, I am this does not go away in leadership. It does not go away in success. Like, it just gets louder. But I get more confident because I'm like, oh, I've been through these spirals before. You know, if I could get through the spirals of, like, my, you know, old friends and family and, like, fellow parents in my kids' classrooms, well, then I can get through, you know, strangers on the internet who want to have opinions about my posts, you know? Like, or like disgruntled students, or, like the hardest part is the people from the old life. But the truth is, like, very few of them have any interest in learning about this stuff. And that doesn't invalidate my interest in it. Like, the friendship shifts because there's like less in common to talk about, because I'm over here super interested in what I'm doing and they're living their lives. And over time, what connects us feels like harder to hold on to, because it's like there's less of it that connects us. So like, what actually is connecting us anymore, And so then it's kind of like, which friendships and which relationships are really worth my energy, when what formerly connected us is maybe currently not super alive. But, from a cyclical point of view, who knows? That old friend that now I don't talk to, she may go through like a huge awakening in a decade, and we may come back to each other. I have to be willing to be open to just these dynamics have their own intelligence. And of course, I would love for everyone to understand what would be possible for them if they understood the 6 polarities of the zodiac, but it's absolutely none of my business. So that's been like very liberating and also very painful. And so in truth, the deeper thing is not so much fear. I think it is grief, because there is a kind of death that happens, I think, when we step forward strongly in what feels like a more true voice and a more true, expansive, multidimensional version of ourselves. There can be deaths that happen, and that's sad. So it's really grief, to me. That is the thing that we're feeling, and we may be afraid to feel, because I think the thing we're usually most afraid to feel underneath everything is grief. Grief is the new shame, as I say now these days. It's one of my sayings of the summer. So, allowing myself to just let go of the strain and the struggle and the striving to be quote unquote understood has been, it was just an absolute liberation. That doesn't mean I still don't get snagged in it. But what I notice, I know that I'm in it because I feel the strain. I feel the strain of if they could just understand though, if they could just understand what I'm saying, if they could just understand why I like this now, if they could just understand why this is so helpful. And then it's then what? That's how I know that I'm in it, I start to get straining. And that's really unhelpful. It's a massive energy loss. It's not good for creativity. It's not great for aliveness. It's a distraction. It's a distraction from what I want to do in this world, and how I want to participate here. So I would say that these are the ways that rejection, that's just such an intense thing. And 7 years in, did anyone really quote unquote reject me? I would say that at the beginning, it seemed like it was coming from everywhere. This sense of I'm being rejected. And what I think now it was is just people were trying to adapt to what's happening with this person, what's happening to this relationship, who even are you? And what people around me were going through was actually their own fear and their own grief that they were losing me. And like, what's going to happen if I can't validate this with Britton? What is going to happen to my relationship with Britton if I don't really want to go to there with her? And so what I was feeling actually was the disturbance of like, how are we, the fear from the other parties in these relationships of like, I don't know that I can go where Britton's going. What's going to happen? And in these tremors, I was projecting rejection onto them. And that didn't help, you know? Like, if I could go back in time, I might have done a lot more of like reaching out to people and like just letting them know that I still love them and I'm not abandoning them and that I don't expect them to go with me and that I don't expect them to care. I don't expect them to be on my newsletter. I don't expect you to follow me on Instagram. I don't expect you to sign up for my classes. I don't need you to validate this. I don't need you to tell me like you're so happy for me when you're not sure if you are, you know? Because what they were feeling was they weren't happy because they were worried that they were losing me, you know? It's like, it's all about grief. And I didn't help the situation by projecting. But my projection was itself, it was a manager part. It was a protecting part to like, and if I could just anticipate being rejected, then I'll like somehow be in front of it and it won't hurt as bad when it happens or something. Like that's a child's view, but we adults carry our children with us. And I think that it was like, I'll just do it. I'll just go ahead and let you go so that you don't have to go through the discomfort of telling me you don't want to be connected to me anymore. So I didn't really give people a chance to reach out and to like keep the bridge and to like just update the contract and update it in a way that was like, we can still be friends. You don't have to agree with the things that I say or the things that I'm doing for us to still be connected at some kind of heart or soul level that is still meaningful, you know? Yeah. So it's like, since you can't, you, me, since I cannot control opinion, judgment, whether or not someone like gets it, admires it, respects it, sees my perspective, it's a surrender situation. And what I can do is notice where I'm projecting outcome when there's like no current evidence about that. And how can I just energetically hold the frequency of like, hey y'all, it's cool. Like, I got this. You don't need to validate it. Because like when I look back, people were like, the reason that they were all weird acting is because they didn't know how to validate me while staying true to themselves. So that, again, it was all about them, not about me. I projected onto them. And I can take responsibility for that. So I feel like it's really just such a powerful thing to keep coming back to yourself, to notice like, what can I take responsibility for? And what we can take responsibility for is holding ourselves and caring for the parts of us that are super scared and calling back our projections back home to us. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Where are you going, projection? Bring it back. That's not what's actually here in the room with me right now. Like, every projection that we are making is taking us away from being with someone else's truth, you know? Whenever we presume we know what someone's thinking, we are choosing to not be present to who they are. in this moment. And we can't help project in the sense that like it's part of how our human brains like make sense of reality, but we can take responsibility for noticing when we're doing it and like calling it back and like recentering to our desire to give people the space to be more than we may imagine they are. And like, what would that be like? Wouldn't that be what we would want to? And that feels really supportive to me. And it's very much a practice. It's like you embody this through living this on a daily basis, And I feel complete. So thank you for this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful question. I hope this was supportive. So how about that? So yummy. So real. Sending love to everyone out there resonating with that message. All right. You got space for one more? We got another really big one. So just so we're clear, this is like a tiny, tiny fraction of the total number of questions and responses. Like when you're in this space for 6 months, this is just like a regular thing that you get to experience. And what happens is you have the opportunity to share exactly what's coming up for you. Like this week, what's coming up is this. And you get to experience how I would respond to that. And then begin to let that inspire, but also shift things. Like just trusting that just listening is like moving things around. First of all, naming it and just naming, I would like help. And with this thing that's coming up in me right now, that is the beginning of you shifting the energy. And then listening to me is another thing. And then going and applying and embodying and living the message. Living the experience of like, I was vulnerable. I was afraid. I wanted to name that. I wanted to be witnessed and wanting support with that. I got support for that. And now I'm embodying this very different frequency. 6 months. 6 months. Okay. Reminder, Underdog to Diva early bird ends Friday, November 8th. At the end of the day, apply before you go to bed, 20% off. Otherwise, we'll see you November 19th. Just apply. You don't really apply. You just enroll. You don't have to apply for this. But I just mean invest, make the decision. Be sure you've read everything beforehand. Be sure you would fully understand what's on the course page beforehand. But yes, these are the deadlines. November 8th is to get the discount. And then after that, the goal is to enroll before the seats are all taken, or at least before we begin November 19th. All right, so this next one is super juicy because it's super relatable. The question had to do from someone who was launching a very new thing, and had been building up, making the announcement, building up towards the promotion dates. Okay, promotion has begun. And then there's this like wobbliness when like the audience is not signing up immediately. The wobbliness that shows up when you're like, you've shared a new thing and you say something about it and it feels like crickets, because like there's just not an immediate, like, tell us more, or like, I can't wait to go on this experiment with you. And you go into these wobbles and this is just normal. because it's like, wait, oh my God, what have I done? And so it was around like, do you have any support for what I'm going through right now? Do you have any inspiration to share to support me in shifting the energy? And I asked this particular person to share, like, tell me what the voices are that you're hearing right now. I'm going to share those voices, and then we're going to go right into my response then. Let's see if you resonate with any of these voices. I don't want to. This is uncomfortable and stretchy. It shouldn't have to be this hard. Let's just hide and do one-on-one and not have to market. I won't do a good job. It's too much to teach and they won't get it. I don't want to be seen in my imperfection. I don't know how to teach this as impactfully as I want to yet. Why am I not getting the interest that I'm used to getting for my other stuff? I thought people liked what I put out here. They must think I'm crazy. All right, so that was what was put forward to me. And now here is how I responded. Let's see if it's supportive to you. Enjoy. Validating these voices. Loving them all. Welcome. Come hang out with us. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for this juiciness. So real. So real. And it's really true that like they're all real, you know? That's the beginning here is it is so vulnerable and at the heart of it, you know, the zinginess of being at the heart of it when we're on to a new thing that is turning us on and our audience isn't used to it yet. They don't know what the hell we're talking about. They don't know why we're talking about it. They don't know the cues yet that this is something that they'd be really turned on by. Not to mention that some of them won't be turned on by it because there's other people who are coming in that will be turned on by it who are as yet unseen by you in present time. So there's a lot of spikiness. And my first invitation is to surrender to all of these voices, like having a right to be here, the intelligence of all of these voices being here is to support you and getting more rooted and more trusting in such an emergent process. And the fact that you have a wobble is not a problem. So there's a lot of different things to address here that I hope could be of support to you. So let me feel into where I want to begin. So initial interest being lukewarm, which is probably the part, like that's evidence, right? That there's evidence that you're seeing that there's not a big interest yet. The initial evidence is lukewarm vibes. And the voice that's showing up because of this evidence is, why am I not getting the interest in this I used to get from my fitness stuff? I thought people liked what I put out there. They must think I'm crazy. So this voice, you know, is a protector part, is what it feels like. that that is really nervous, that is also related to they won't get it. You know, that voice that's saying they won't get it. And so what I feel like is here to help you, that might help you, is like to recognize that you are putting a lot of pressure on your audience to produce the evidence for you that this is necessary, that this is good, that this is meaningful, that this is impactful. You are putting the pressure on your audience to produce the evidence. So the recentering, when this happens for me, this totally happens for me. Like, how could it not, right? So for me, when this is showing up where I'm sort of like mad at this audience, you know, like I'm mad at people who haven't signed up yet. Like, I really don't want to be in that energy. I know you don't either, right? So that's when I come back to myself, because I notice that I'm looking for external validation that something I have is worthy. But the thing that I'm offering wants me to know that it's worthy. You know, the thing that you're offering wants you to know that you believe in it, and that actually like revere it so much that of course there's going to be crickets at the beginning, because this is so different and so unique and so like channeled that is going to take people a little while to understand what you're talking about. It's going to take people a while to even know they want it, because it's that unseen before. So, like that's what, and that's scary, because you're like, but I don't have the evidence that it's impactful. How can I be the one to validate it when I don't have the evidence, you know? And so this is when, where you're really at the edges of your trust. I mean, when I say you, I mean everyone who's doing this kind of work in the world, you know, like you have to be at the edges of trust, because you are doing a thing at the edge of the unknown without evidence. That is so brave. It's so vulnerable. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Like, this is really living bravely in devotion to your passions and creativity and your service. If you wanted to do the known thing, you would just keep doing what you were doing, you know? So some part of you is like pulling you into this unknown place. And these are the voices you're hearing are the parts of you that are really nervous about basically what I would say is where your soul is taking you. And so it's just like continuing to that protector part is looking away from you for evidence that this is any good or that it's bad. And feel into that part of you and have them turn towards you. They're looking away. They're looking at your audience for evidence. Visualize, feel them turning around and facing you. And then you say to them, the audience doesn't know yet. We're the ones that are guiding this. We're the ones that are taking this. We know it's going to be impactful. They don't know this yet. So it doesn't make any sense to be turning them to them for validation. You know? Can you feel that energetically is like turning that part towards you? Because they're focused outward. And the larger you, the you that's doing this, knows that your audience actually doesn't know. Like, they're not the people to turn to for feedback right now. You can ask their feedback. You can ask people's feedback when they're through the program and they're out there participating in their lives differently because of the impact of the program, you know? But right now they don't know anything, respectfully. So that's why, like, this is leadership. This is leadership. You're leading, which means you're in the lonely place of being the one validating it for you, you know? I mean, you know you're not alone. You have your guides, you have your soul, you have Underdog to Diva support, you have the places, the people that you get support from, but you are the leader of this. And so to the degree that you can turn away from the audience for validation, because they're probably very quietly watching and trying to understand what's happening and like what is this person talking about, you know? And that doesn't mean that they're criticizing it or judging it. They just want to understand more before they follow their soul into the container, if it's meant for them, you know? You shared that the wobbliness is also because you're evolving this body of work and you feel like you're you're not totally dialed in. Yeah. And that's probably this feeling of like, I just don't see it all yet, you know, is probably related to the voice that's saying, I don't want to be seen imperfectly in my imperfection. I don't know how to teach this as impactfully as I want to yet. And the same voice as, I won't do a good job, you know, it's too much. And I really have compassion for this too. This feeling can really tap into my feeling of like, feeling unworthy to be like asking people to pay me to go to this place, you know? And, because you're a 3-5, I'm going to say like, go, just do it. 'Cause it's through the learning. Like I would say that most of the time I get bruised and battered around on a new thing quite a bit. But usually it ends up still a rollicking, quote unquote, success for the people that it was most meant for. And then I learned a whole lot. And because I'm a 3-5, I also just like change things every single time and never do it the same, because then I'd be bored, and I'm looking to learn new things always. So because I'm not moving towards a perfected state that I can just repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, I'm always going to get bruised and battered around by my offerings as I like did something, you know, wish I had done that thing differently. Wish I had advertised in a way that, you know, this had been clarified. I'm going to need to repeat that section of that module because that felt a little unstable. But does that mean that the sum total of the offering was worthless? No. Because the energy of being so committed, sincerely committed at the edges of your passion is actually more important than all of those little details, you know? And the people that are really your people are coming for the passion. They're coming for the presence of your passion, and not because like your fine print was perfect, you know? At least this is what I tell myself. I actually really don't care about serving people who are going to micromanage how perfect I am. You know, like I'm healing that shit. I don't need more of it. So the more you can be compassionate with yourself and allow those imperfections and allow error and allow room for growth and allow room for like, kind of wish that had been better. But like, does that mean it sucked? No, that is like the conditioning that you're healing from talking to you, you know? And if you want your students to learn how to hold themselves through error and imperfection, then this is the opportunity to practice doing that for yourself. That's how I see it, because I totally bump up against this, because I have that, student who always wanted to get like the perfect grade, So as I heal that in myself, I trust that I am bringing a very high standard here, but it's also experimental and hyper creative, which means there's chaos here, which means there might be some fumbles and there might be things I want to fix on the next round. Like, it's okay. If the more my perfection energy is up, the more I attract students who expect perfection, and the more likely I am to hear about how I've been imperfect. You know what I mean? So it's like, the more you can allow yourself to be openly imperfect and openly vulnerable with your promo, just like I'm at the edges of just let everybody know, like, this is scary for me. This is super edgy. I promise you, people will be turned on by that. And the people that aren't, well, then they're not for a new experimental program. The more you're transparent, your wobbliness becomes part of the promo in authenticity, rather than you trying to make it perfect, and then that being scary because you know that it's not perfect. But then again, wait a minute, I'm not trying to be perfect. Is kind of like the loop I go in, And then the sense of like, you're used to high launches, and this being an underdog thing. This is that the I don't want to voice that's saying this is uncomfortable and stretchy. It shouldn't be hard. Let's just hide and do one-on-one, and I'll have to market. This is when, like, it's so helpful to have underdog experiences for our diva parts, because like this diva part has gotten very comfortable, and it's like the indignity of marketing, and like, think about external voices that may have critiqued you for having marketing energy. Think about, people in your life who maybe shame marketing energy, and how you may be shaming yourself for having marketing energy. And why does it feel like marketing? Because you're having to convince people to go somewhere with you that they have never been before, right? When you do the same old thing, you don't feel like you have as much convincing to do. You don't have to be persuasive. You don't have to really like get out there and talk about this vision, because it's just like, well, people just come in because it's like the standard template. They know it. So the invitation here is to really recognize that there's shame here, and that like, is marketing bad? You're helping people understand this vision. That's on you to do. Like, it's on you to tell people about what this is according to the visions that you're having. How else are they supposed to know? So that's what marketing is, You're trying to describe something that people probably don't understand, and you're the only one that can do that. Like, they can't pick it up telepathically or just like see one ad and get it. Like, it's going to take many emails. It's going to take lots of posting. It's going to take making videos of yourself. And it's going to take much repetition for people to understand, and probably years of repetition for it to start to have its own like role of like, people are just coming in. But even then, for my offers, like, I'm always going to have people who have never heard of the Magician's Table, who don't know what the fuck that is. Even though it's like becoming a well-known name, I still always have new people who are like, what? And so it's on me. Like, I can't just like make it so that I don't have to ever talk about it if I actually want to bring people to it who are meant for it, So it's like recentering to the gratitude that you get to be this person. You get to be the person that stewards this offering. This offering chose you. And when I recenter to that, it like helps me to root into the power of it and my gratitude for all the things that came my way so that I could vision it. And that, and on days where I'm like, I don't want to, I want to hide. Okay. Is there one thing I could do though? Is there something I could just like throw in stories? You know, every day it's just like, what is one thing I could do? And that helps me feel good about honoring the stewardship piece. I hope that this was helpful. Sending you a big hug. Can't wait to hear about how it's going the next time we connect. Cheers. How about that? Was that helpful? Was that supportive? Was that something that you needed to hear today? If you're still listening, I'm thinking it was. So envision a reality where for 6 months you have the opportunity to bring what's coming up for you to the group, to me, seeing what comes through to support you, to reframe what you're experiencing through the lens of your divinity, while having compassion for the parts of you that are very afraid. I'm calling what we build here compassionate momentum. This to me it's a picture of participating, navigating the marketplace reality as a divine being among divine being, where you're sharing your gifts with other humans for money. What we're building here is momentum. This is the momentum of showing up, even if you don't feel perfect, right? Because we're clearing the distortions of perfectionism here. We're showing up even if we aren't 100% exactly clear on what we're doing, because we're clearing the distortions that you're supposed to be some kind of expert at a thing that you've never done before. And all of this is supporting you in really landing into self-trust and the pride that arrives, not just because of what you've achieved and the results that you've got, and those are great too, but the pride you feel from giving yourself some space to take your time at learning this, being patient with yourself, being compassionate with yourself, really listening to yourself, validating all of your experience, even as you're still showing up and holding the rhythm, keeping the momentum. It's the momentum piece that is very contracting. You know, the momentum is scary. So this container is ideal for those of you who feel like that kind of pressure is a pressure that you want to take on right now. Knowing that ultimately what we're doing is rewiring the groove that says you can only show up with momentum when you show up perfect for it. So a lot of that will be confronting, and it's going to be bringing up your wounded inner children, your managers and protector parts that at times may be like, I can't do this and this is scary. Or like, this isn't for me, rah, you know. And this is a place where we're just welcoming all of those parts to be here. As you're also rooted in this larger truth of your divinity That is your soul that's taking you places with your gifts, bringing you to these people that are longing for them, trusting in the inevitability of that process as you have momentum for it. What an honor. It is an honor. Please reach out. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll see you inside, all y'all who are vibing. Take care, take care, take care. Lots of love.